Hi, my name is Scott, and I would like to thank everyone joining us today for this health workshop on heart health. It's part of our self-care series brought to you by the Health Committee of the NAACP Branch in Manchester. This is our second health workshop this year, and we'll keep you posted about upcoming workshops. There are also other workshops that the Economic Justice Committee also does. We'll give you more information about that at the end of this workshop this afternoon. So I know time is precious, and we appreciate you sharing this moment with us. This workshop is being recorded and will be available at a later time to all who registered for the workshop. Just to give you a little bit of information about the NAACP. The NAACP is a national association for the advancement of colored people, founded in February of 1909 to advocate for change here in this country. So since then, the NAACP has evolved to address and advocate on issues related to human rights, to health, since we're doing this workshop here today, education, social and economic and environmental justice. So we have committees for each one of these departments that I just mentioned. So just to name a few. So if you want to learn more about the NAACP mission and vision, you can visit the NAACP and also our branch here, the NAACP Manchester branch online. There is a website. The NAACP Manchester branch is also on social media. They also have a YouTube page as well. So I will be your moderator this afternoon. This workshop is divided into 4 parts, right? So we have the introduction, which is what I'm doing currently. And we have the speaker lecturer who will be presenting the workshop on heart health. Then we have a Q&A session, question and answers session. Then we have the closing of the workshop where we will be announcing other workshops and other events coming up. So if you have any question, please use the chat at the bottom of your screen and ask your question, and they will be answered during the Q&A section. If you do have questions during the workshop, I believe Dr. Adine Latimore is okay with that. She will confirm that when she starts the workshop. We will also do our best in a timely manner to answer as many as we can, as I know time is precious, as I previously mentioned to you. So this workshop is titled Heart Health, How to Keep Your Heart Healthy. Do we have that slide up, Sharon?
It'll be coming.
Okay. And our speaker will delve deeper into the subject matter. So without further ado, let's present our speaker for this afternoon's workshop.
Thank you. Thank you. You guys can see the slide that's up there now, correct? You can see it. Okay, good. All right. Thanks, Scott. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for welcoming my team and I to discuss cardiac health. I'm not here by myself. As you see on the slide, I have Njideka Adichie. She's our nutritionist and a specialist in metabolism, and Nichell Latimore. She's our fitness instructor and personal trainer. So they will be joining me during this presentation. And then I also want to thank Black Nurses Rock New England for their support in helping me with this. All right, so I'm trying to switch my slide and it's not happening. There we go. All right, so this healthcare workshop presentation is presented to you by myself, Black Nurses Rock, and the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, as you already heard, as Scott mentioned. And before we get started, we have to have this disclaimer. I just have to move my slide. And the purpose of this workshop is for education only and is not served to substitute as a consultation. Please consult your healthcare provider for more detailed information. The presenters and the NAACP Manchester Branch Unit 2069 assume no responsibility or liability for any errors or omissions in the informational content of this workshop. For completeness and accuracy of the content herein, check with the CDC, the American Heart Association, and the federal and state departments of health. And I know Scott mentioned the questions. I think we want to get through the presentation first because, as like you said, time is of the essence and people may have other things to do. So we're going to go through the slides first and then answer the questions. I just have to move that. Okay, so February is Cardiac Health Month, which is why we decided to do this presentation today. Your heart is the most important muscle in your body. And according to the American Heart Association, cardiac disease is the #1 killer for African-American men, African-American women, white Caucasian men, and white Caucasian women. So it is the #1 cause of death in the United States, which has changed. It's greater than cancer, stroke, COVID, Alzheimer's, anything else that used to be up top. And, you know, we have to question, what are we doing here in the United States to have come to this level where cardiac disease, which we can manage, is killing us off. So we have to talk about risk factors so that we can change this statistic. So you want to know your risk factors. And some of your risk factors are overweight and obesity, hypertension, which is your blood pressure over 120/80, over 50 years of age, increased cholesterol level. Your LDL, bad cholesterol, should be below 100, and your good cholesterol should be 50 or higher. And Njideka is going to talk a little bit more about that when we get there. But I put the picture also of the little child because he's already obese. So it can start in childhood. We have to watch what our children are doing. We have to encourage them to exercise. We have to give them the proper diet because this little boy could have respiratory problems, cardiac problems. He's not too young. So if we start when the kids are young, then it can travel with them through their life. Right now, kids are a little more sedentary than they were when I was young. I mean, we ran around, we were out in the streets playing ball, and now they're on their phones or on their tablets. So we have to look at that and try to encourage better health activities so that they won't end up with cardiac problems. Okay, there are also other contributors to heart disease that people don't think about. One of those is menopause, and the other one is diabetes. So for women, when you go through menopause, you have a decrease in estrogen. That the withdrawal from estrogen from the body affects the cardiovascular function and your metabolism. Women start having the vasomotor symptoms, the sweating, the flushing, their heartbeats increase, anxiety increases, the LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, increases, and your HDL, the good kind, decreases. So this can lead to a buildup of cholesterol in the arteries, and then we start over with the plaque buildup, which is one of the major causes of cardiac arrest. Oh, and diabetes. I don't think I mentioned diabetes from that last slide. I'm sorry. For diabetes, when you have diabetes, your blood sugar is increased, which means you have an increased glucose in your blood. So the glucose makes your blood vessels stiff, which increases your blood pressure and increases your chance of a heart attack. So all that sugar in your vessels, when you don't want it to, your blood sugar kind of sticky and makes those vessels stiff and harder for the blood to get through and for your heart to pump. So you want to make sure you manage your diabetes and you take your medication as you should. Okay, so let's talk about a heart attack because after all, that's what we're trying to prevent. And a heart attack is defined as a lack of blood flow to the heart. A heart attack, in the slide says, a heart attack occurs when the blood flow to the heart is blocked. The blockage, again, is caused by a buildup of plaque, which is fats, in the coronary arteries and cholesterol in your blood vessels, and that would be the bad cholesterol. So again, it kind of goes back to cholesterol, so we're going to hear a lot about that, I'm sure, in the after a few slides when Adi talks about cholesterol buildup and what we can do about that. So you want to pay attention to your body. Your body will talk to you. And if you're having signs and symptoms, and I wanted to just mention this right now, don't be afraid to call 911. People push it off and don't call, and things happen. So as soon as you start having signs and symptoms like a sharp pain in the chest or a crushing feeling, they say it's like an elephant on the chest. I've never had that happen, but it's probably really, really stressful. You have shortness of breath. I know a man who, that's all he was doing at the kitchen table with his wife was shortness of breath, and they realized he was having a heart attack. Pain in your arm or your back, pain in your upper abdomen or jaw pain. You can be dizzy, lightheaded. All of those are signs of a heart attack, and you want to call 911 as soon as those kind of things happen. You have to listen to your body. Your body will tell you, and you have to respond. And then sometimes you have silent heart attack symptoms. These are the ones that are ignored mostly, the ones we brush off, like indigestion. Most folks will just run and take some Tums. Flu-like symptoms, excessive fatigue, like really tired, feeling like you pulled a muscle in your back or your chest. Again, if you think you're having a heart attack, call 911. It doesn't hurt. They can come out, check you, and either take you to the hospital or leave you at your house. And then I wanted to mention Damar Hamlin, the football player that had the cardiac arrest or the sudden cardiac arrest on the field. Now, chances are he didn't have lipid buildup. He was a healthy football player. So his heart attack was more likely attributed to something electrical, like that hit in his chest causes some electrical impulses to go off and not do what they were supposed to do. And that will also cause a heart attack. And that's a little different. So pay attention to the your silent symptoms. And I'm going fast because I wanted to just make sure we get everything in. So what can we do to maintain a healthy heart? Because none of us want to die by a heart attack if we can prevent it. So you want to stop all forms of tobacco use. Tobacco increases your risk of heart damage. Tobacco and nicotine contain many chemicals that can harm your blood vessels and your heart, making them stiff. They can cause atherosclerosis, which again is the buildup of cholesterol, fat, calcium. Smoking can help cause your blood vessels to narrow, which again decreases blood flow. What we want to do is keep those vessels open so the blood can flow to your heart and the heart can get the blood around your body. And anything else that doesn't do that is detrimental to our health. We want, and also to maintain a healthy lifestyle, you need to incorporate exercise into your daily routine. Nichell will talk more about this and why it is helpful, but one way to make your muscles stronger is to exercise it. So we're trying to build muscle, but your heart is also a muscle, and you want to exercise that also so that it can be strong. And sometimes when I know when I was walking with Nichell or exercise, I'm like, my heart is beating too fast. She's like, that's good. It's supposed to. You're not having a heart attack. Just keep it up. Just keep moving. Just keep walking. And that was something that I needed to hear, because as soon as it started beating a little faster, I became concerned, but that's what it was supposed to do. And it's good to walk with somebody who's a personal trainer and they can help you if you have questions. You also want to maintain a healthy weight. Obesity is right there on the top. So you want to do things to help prevent obesity. We can figure it out. The increased weight requires your body to require more effort from your heart to maintain a baseline resting level. I mean, your heart is beating to get the blood around the obese body. That can cause a strain on your heart and can tax it, and you give you further issues in the future. So exercise and a healthy diet, they can help you lose weight and decrease putting a strain on your heart. And again, the other two ladies that are with me are going to talk more about how we can do that. So these are things that we can do to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And then we're going to get into the facts of, okay, so now what do I do? How can I do that? What exercise can I use? What should I eat? You also need to make a habit of getting regular screenings on your blood pressure and other levels. So like I said, 120/80 is usually when doctors want you to, come back in and check it again. And you can have a blood pressure cuff at home to keep you informed of your heart health and allow you to take action before anything serious happens. So a lot of folks have a blood pressure cuff in their home. Check your blood pressure, especially if you're obese, if you're diabetic, even if you have hypertension and you're already on medication. You want to monitor it to make sure your blood pressure is at a level that's not going to cause you any issues. and avoid too much stress. I don't know how we're going to do that. There's lots of things that's stressful in today's world. Every day, if we watch the news, we hear something on the news that stresses us out. In your family, in your life, at your job. It's just too many to talk about. But everyone knows what stresses them out. So in your body, increased stress causes like an increase in adrenaline. You've heard about that, and cortisol. Those just hype up your body, elevate your blood pressure, the cholesterol levels. Those are the adrenaline, and the epinephrine is like a fight or flight. So that's definitely working. So if you're stressed out, these hormones are just steadily being increased in your body that can negatively affect your health. And also when you're stressed, you may have behaviors. There are certain behaviors related to stress that negatively affect your health, like you're stressful, so you're eating more. You want to drink, you want to smoke, you just want to lie around and be physically inactive. So you want to watch that. We have to just pay attention and do what we know we need to do. Most of us know what we need to do. The thing is just to do it. So I hope Adi or Nichell could tell us, like, how do we get to do it? Get to that point where we're not talking ourselves out of anything. And manage your mental health. A lot of mental health issues going on. There's certain mental health conditions that can lead to detrimental behaviors for your heart. Depression, anxiety, OCD, bipolar disorder. And they too can cause symptoms, or you can present with symptoms like excessive eating, apathy, physical inactivity, and stress. All of those can contribute to poor heart disease. Okay, so now we're getting to the foods. So this one, you want to eat a heart-healthy diet and focus on superfoods. So I'm going to have Adi come in and talk about superfoods. And today's Adi's birthday, so happy birthday. I kind of forgot, but I just remembered. So Adi,
okay.
you can come in and talk about superfoods. I think the next few slides are yours. So take your time and help us.
Hi, so again, my name's Adi. I'm a dietetic intern currently, so I'm almost done with that. And then I sit for my licensing exam. I have my master's in nutrition and metabolism, and I could talk about that all day. So please bear with me. I'm really just going to focus on foods today. So yeah, superfoods. These are, I feel like the term is kind of a misnomer sometimes because it doesn't mean that a kiwi is better for you than your peppers, your regular romaine lettuce, your grapes that you buy at the grocery store. Superfood really just kind of means a food that's much higher in something like omega-3, potassium, magnesium, all these different essential fatty acids that are really, really good for your brain, your cardiovascular health. And so for these types of foods, you want to eat variety. We often say eat the rainbow, meaning you want to go for as many different types of plants as possible. There's something like over 2,000 edible plants, and just go through the grocery store. The first thing you walk into is the produce aisle. They actually designed the store that way to try to encourage people to eat healthy because you see all these bright colors. It's very appealing to you. Eating is a sensory experience as well. So that's something you should be drawn to and go for. You want to aim for berries, nuts, seeds, fatty fishes, whole grains, things that are going to have lots of fiber, because as we talked about cholesterol, fiber is a great way to bring that down. And even certain types of fat will do that are much better for you than all the saturated fat. Trans fats, those are much more dangerous because of their molecular shape. They're able to stack on top of each other, which makes it easier for them to do things like clog your arteries. So again, you want to go for berries. Those are really high in phytonutrients, blackberries, raspberries, grapes, those different purple fruits and vegetables. They're really, really good for your blood, your cardiovascular system. Do some red grapes with breakfast, maybe a handful of walnuts. I eat walnuts every day if I can. Trader Joe's is great for that. They have a wide selection. And I would highly recommend avoiding the salt because again, we're talking about heart health. So you want to go for the options that are either reduced sodium or no salt. And I promise you, if you stick to that, your taste buds will adjust. You'll enjoy it. I would do nuts for breakfast. You can do seeds. The types of seeds that are really great for heart health are chia seeds, flax seeds. You might have seen in the grocery store, they have a lot of different ways that they do this now. You can buy them ground already, so you don't have to do that at home. And if you do, you can add them to some oatmeal, for example. And the reason you want them to be ground is so that you can actually access the omega-3, because if the seed is not broken open, it's just going to pass through your digestive system intact. That's not bad. It's good if you're having constipation. It can help you have a bowel movement. But again, to access the essential fatty acids that are so great for your heart health, you want to have that seed be open. So again, walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds. If you like fish, you definitely want to go for the fatty fishes. Those are very high in omega-3. So salmon, tuna. We often recommend chunk light because that's lower in mercury. So you maybe want to look for that if you're concerned about anything related to your brain. And yeah, then another food that I think is great for heart health, full of all these different phytonutrients from plants, are leafy greens and cruciferous vegetables. There's an array of different types of lettuce out there. I know some people think, romaine, iceberg, but yeah, you could do spinach, kale, arugula, broccoli, tatsoi. I'll throw a list in. I know it's a lot. There's, again, over 2,000 edible plants out there. So just having all that variety in your diet, it's going to bring in all this potassium and fiber, soluble fiber, omega-3, and all of these are indicated in helping to maintain heart health, neurological health, bring down your bad cholesterol, your LDL cholesterol, and increase your HDL cholesterol. So that's my spiel.
You put something in the chat about total cholesterol.
Oh, yes, I did. I wanted to actually start by mentioning total cholesterol. You don't, when you go to your physical, your doctor takes your labs, they look at your blood, they look at all these different parameters, and they definitely want to see your total cholesterol or your HDL plus your LDL being lower than 200 milligrams per deciliter. And I like to differentiate between the two types of cholesterol by this funny acronym, like HDL is the good cholesterol, it's a hero. The LDL is a loser, that's the bad cholesterol, it's going to do your body a lot more harm. You want your LDL to be less than 130 milligrams per deciliter and your HDL cholesterol to be 40 or greater.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. I think it's not working again.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. Okay, I'll keep trying, but the next slide has like the different food types, the general healthy diet, Adie, if you want to talk about that while I try to see what is going on and why I can't, just all the different food groups and what we should have.
Yeah, sure. So, the typical recommendation is 3 meals a day, but some people that varies for them. Some people, we recommend they break it up into more smaller frequent meals, especially if you struggle with maybe feeling full or having time to eat, just having a snack with you, like a handful of walnuts, some grapes or berries with that. It's a great way to strategize getting these foods into your diet every day, especially if you have them as a snack. Oh, here we go. So a heart healthy diet is going to be composed of fruits and vegetables. Of course, I just told you about all those. Some whole grains, which have a lot of fiber, low fat dairy products, nuts and fish, leaner meats like poultry and turkey, eggs, and definitely recommend building your plate in such a manner that you can get balance with all of these foods. So you want to see a plate that's half fruits and vegetables. You want to make sure you're piling as many of those on your plate as possible. And then about a quarter protein, lean protein, and then a quarter of your grain, your whole grains. And you want to try to get, lower amounts of very starchy foods like potatoes. It's not that those are bad for you, but they will definitely raise your blood glucose much faster than something that's whole grain that has fiber in it. It's going to keep you fuller longer and keep your energy level more stable instead of having what we like to call a blood sugar roller coaster, where say you eat a donut for breakfast, your blood sugar is going to spike and you might feel great because all that sugar is there and you're using it and you feel like you have all this energy, but long before you even get to lunch, you're going to be starving because your blood sugar will spike and then crash. You're going to be irritable, starving. So you want to maybe rely more on if you do breads at breakfast, the whole grains, half of a whole grain bagel. You could toast it, throw some peanut butter on there or almond butter. We have all these different nuts out there. You can experiment with the different kinds. And again, that variety is going to give you much greater health. You have all these different nutrients coming from plants. So I would definitely recommend experimenting with those and always adding protein, fiber, and healthy fat to your meals, because those are going to, 1, keep your blood sugar stable so you're not going through that spike and crash. 2, give you all of these nutrients that are good for your heart, going to maintain it in the long run. And again, the fiber is going to help you from absorbing too much sugar, and sugar metabolically ends up going into fat storage. So when we're concerned about atherosclerosis, you don't want to have a very, very high carb, especially very simple carb diet that's going to go into fat metabolism and get stored as fat, clog your arteries, lead to those plaques that are can detach even and travel through your circulatory system to cause a stroke or heart attack. So fiber, protein, healthy fat. If you like yogurt, that's a great thing to do for breakfast. You also have all those helpful bacteria in there that maintain your gut health. Your gut is the hub of your immunity. And actually those bacteria they're doing all this metabolism that interacts with all these different pathways in your body, as well as even heart health. So having your gut be healthy, having your fiber, your omega-3, if you can do yogurt, definitely great to do for breakfast. You could even do plain yogurt so you're not getting too much sugar. Throw in some frozen fruit that you thaw overnight, a great way to add some sugar without really adding sugar. And then again, as I mentioned, the protein is going to help you stay full. It's going to provide your muscles with everything they need, especially if you're trying to build muscle mass. You want to make sure you're getting enough protein. Eat the lean meats, the lean cuts. Even from something like pork, you can do the leaner cuts. And that's always just going to be better for you in terms of heart health.
Thank you. There are a couple of questions in the chat. I wasn't going to do the chat, but I'm going to do the chat because, they're quick. And one of them was, can you say more about what we should do to monitor as relates to heart disease and menopause? Well, menopause, again, you just want to watch the same things. You want to watch your cholesterol. You want to watch your blood pressure, because with the lack of estrogen, those cholesterol levels will increase. So, and usually if you go to the doctor, often they will watch those things for you. There's really nothing we can do about menopause. It's going to happen if we live long enough for it to happen. So you want to control your symptoms. You see women walking around fanning their faces and all of that, and it usually lasts for a little bit. But you have to just monitor those same levels, cholesterol, your blood pressure, and try to cool yourself off.
Yeah.
And there's a nutrition question.
Yeah, I was about to answer that. Someone had said, I like to eat the East Asian noodles. Is there any kind that's better? So I'm not sure. If you mean like those ramen packets that you buy at the grocery store, holy hypertension, those scare me because of the salt content. I feel if you're going to eat something like that, you're much better off doing it at home yourself. You can go to even Price Right and get like those, prepackaged noodles that are just the noodles themselves, not with the salt. I call it a salt packet because the flavor packets are just so salty. You could go and get the noodles yourself. There's low sodium broth out there. So someone said I throw the broth out. Oh, okay. Well, yeah, you can make your own broth even, and that's even better because you're controlling the salt content. So I would definitely recommend if there's certain foods you like that are junky, there's all these different ways you can make them healthier, even veganize them. Just by, for example, buying your own broth or making it from scratch. So you're controlling how much salt's going in, buying your own noodles so you can control the portion size of those noodles and not be eating excess carb, for example. So yeah, definitely I would recommend making these things at home instead of relying on the processed food packs that you would buy at the grocery store.
Thank you. And I didn't change the slide to hurry you up, but I was trying to change the slides because I'm having a problem with the slide, but this is your slide.
Oh, sure, no worries. Yeah, so in terms of heart health, you definitely want to avoid the foods that are bad for your heart. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, things like trans fats and saturated fats. There's been a movement over the past couple of years to remove trans fats from all the processed foods. And while that's great, it doesn't necessarily mean that those foods are suddenly really healthy for you. So you want to try to eat as whole as possible, meaning, few ingredients. You're not eating something that's, packaged, processed. It's going to have a lot more salt, sugar, hardly any fiber. You're not going to find the healthy types of fats. So you definitely want to avoid those kinds of foods. Manage your meals. Try to not go too long without eating. That can cause, for some people, some issues with their blood sugar. You want to, be snacking on healthy things between meals and focusing on your protein, fiber, healthy fat to keep your blood sugar stable and keep your body functioning optimally. You want to add, if necessary, and that's something you can discuss with your doctor, a dietary supplement, but be careful with supplements because those are not FDA regulated. There are brands that are more trustworthy than others, meaning they go through purity testing to make sure what's in them is actually what you're getting. But some of these supplements can actually be a little dangerous. So if you need something, it's better to discuss it with your doctor, but we always think people should try to get things from food first if they can.
Exactly. So we hope you get the bulk of your nutrition from your food, but sometimes supplements can round things out, little vitamins, like water soluble vitamins, that's okay. When you get into the other vitamins, that's a different story. But like I'm on vitamin D because I just need some extra vitamin D in my life. But yeah, run it by your doctor or your provider. Okay, so we're going to talk about exercise, and one way to make your muscles stronger, thanks, Adi, is to exercise it. And that's true for your heart muscle. So Nichelle's going to speak more about that, what type of exercise, and this is aerobic exercise. So it's on you, Nichell.
Okay, hello everybody. My name is Nichell Latimore. My pronouns are she and her. I am a certified personal trainer through the American College of Sports Medicine. I have additional certifications in pre and postnatal health and assisted stretch. And I'm going to be talking to you today about some exercise recommendations and examples, and hopefully answering any questions that you guys have. Excuse me. So aerobic exercise, also known as cardio or cardiovascular exercise, anytime you see the word cardio, that's going to mean heart or related to your heart. So these are exercises that are going to get your heart rate to elevate. The recommendation from the American Heart Association is that before you start any exercise regimen, that you get clearance from your doctor. So you want to make sure you get medical clearance from your primary care provider. That was also mentioned in the opening disclaimer, but it's really important that you are aware of your limits before you start any type of exercise regimen. So the American Heart Association also recommends that for cardiovascular exercise, that you're exercising at least 150 minutes per week of moderate exercise. So you can break that up into, say, the most general recommendation is 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day of moderate exercise. Well, what is moderate exercise? What is moderate cardiovascular exercise? It's going to differ from person to person. It depends kind of on your conditioning level. How conditioned are you? How much exercise have you done previously? What is your general health state? For most people, something like a brisk walk or most aerobic classes would constitute moderate exercise. But to make it a little bit more objective, what we like to shoot for is anything that's going to get your heart rate into 50 to 70% of your maximum heart rate. So to determine your maximum heart rate, a basic kind of equation that you can use is to take the number 220 and subtract from that your age. So for me, I'm 35. Sorry, I just had a birthday, so I just turned 35. So for me, my maximum heart rate would be about 185 heartbeats per minute, excuse me. So I would want to obtain moderate exercise or moderate heart rate. I want to be within 50 to 70% of that 185. It's a lot of math to do if you're really shooting to get into that percentage, into that range. But you can also use, it's 2023 and we are blessed, sometimes cursed, but often blessed with lots of technology. So you can use a Fitbit, you can use an Apple Watch. I use a MyZone belt, which is really helpful because it does give you a color-coded range depending on what your maximum heart rate is. And there are some heart rate monitors, the MyZone belt is one of them, that will learn you and learn your body and determine what your actual maximum heart rate is. So the MyZone belt has my maximum heart rate at 192 heartbeats per minute. So it's a little bit higher than the equation, which had me at 185, but it's still, it's still pretty close. That's still a pretty good equation that you can use. If you want to do some vigorous exercise, the American Heart Association recommends that you're doing 75 minutes total per week. So that can look like 3 days of 25 minutes per day, or you can break it up however you want. For most people, again, that's going to look something like running, hills, biking hills, swimming laps, most endurance sports like basketball, soccer, those types of things. For vigorous exercise, to objectify that a little bit more, you want your heart rate to be within 70 to 90% of your maximum heart rate. You don't want to be sustaining anywhere above 90 degrees in your maximum heart rate for any more than like a minute or two. If you're doing interval training, which I'll get into in a little bit, you may hit that 92, 93, 94, 95% of your maximum heart rate, but you don't want to be sustaining up there. If you're hitting that number, that's okay, but you don't want to have an entire workout above 90% of your maximum heart rate just for your health. And again, using a MyZone belt, a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, those types of things to monitor that. If you don't have that technology, you can often use what we call in the fitness industry a talk test to moderate your exercise. So if you're doing moderate exercise, you should be able to have a conversation, but have to kind of slow it down, have to take breaths in between. You should certainly be able to talk, but be breathing kind of heavy. If you're doing vigorous exercise or you're looking to do vigorous exercise, it should be pretty challenging to maintain a consistent conversation. A couple words here and there, you should be able to talk, but a couple of words here and there, and then otherwise you're just kind of focused on your breathing. That's a good indication that you're engaging in some vigorous exercise. The idea is not necessarily to, I don't love the adage of a couch to 5K type of thing. I do like the programming, but hearing just that vernacular can be a little bit misleading, because what you don't want to do is get off of the couch and then go run a marathon and you've never exercised in your life. You want to be able to start slowly. So if you're not someone who's engaged in organized sports, or you're not somebody who has a gym membership and is at the gym a lot and you haven't exercised a lot, you can start by walking. Walk your dog if you have a dog. That does count as exercise. You can start by doing an exercise video. If you have an old Taibo that you were doing in the 90s that you really liked and you remember, that's something great to start with. Start with, walking upstairs instead of taking the elevator. Start with parking further away from the entrance of the building that you're going in. Those types of things to start to build up your endurance, to then make your heart a little bit stronger. And then you should be able to see some progressions over time. The benefits to cardiovascular exercise are that it strengthens your heart muscle. You've heard that term throughout this presentation, that your heart is a muscle. And the more your heart, it's just like any muscle, where the more you use it, the stronger it's going to get. I see that the slide is on the strength training slide, and
I only did that because I'm just having a problem moving along. So I'm messing with it, like I'm messing with it now to get the next one. So
I figured, but it's fine because it kind of ties in here. Okay. Your heart is a muscle the same way your biceps and your triceps and your quads and all of those are muscles. And the more you exercise them, the stronger they're going to get. So the same way you would do that with strength training with your larger muscles that you think of, your skeletal muscles, it's the same type of thing, or it's the same type of effect that cardiovascular exercise has on your heart muscle. It's going to strengthen it, and that may help to lower your blood pressure, which I know was mentioned as a risk factor for a heart attack, So doing more cardio and strengthening your heart muscle will help to lower your blood pressure, because your heart isn't necessarily going to have to work as hard once it becomes more conditioned. Cardio exercise can also help with weight loss, which was one of the, fat loss, which was one of the risk factors for a myocardial infarction. It can reduce the risk of many illnesses that also come along with increased body fat percentage, including diabetes, fatty liver disease, those types of things. To focus on fat loss, which is different than weight loss, I'll deviate for a second, just because losing weight can mean any number of things. That can be, water weight, that can be fat loss, that could be muscle loss. Any of those things anything that's going to make your weight go down is considered weight loss. I mean, if I chop off my arm, that's weight loss, but that's not necessarily the type of weight loss that we're looking for. We want to focus on lowering your body fat percentage. To do that with cardiovascular exercise, you want to focus on high intensity interval training. So I mentioned that a little bit earlier. All that means is doing shorter bursts of fast, high intensity, your vigorous exercises, and alternating those with longer bursts or equal size bursts. It kind of depends on the person, of lower intensity exercise. So moderate or light intensity exercise. So for me, I do a lot of HIIT training, and I do that on a treadmill where I'll sprint for about a minute and then walk at a brisk pace for about 2 minutes. That's considered high intensity interval training. It doesn't have to be on a treadmill or an elliptical or anything like that. You don't need equipment. You can do high intensity interval training using body weight exercises. You can do some jump squats. You can do some burpees. You can do some step ups. You can do some lateral skaters. There's a million jumping jacks, jump rope. There's a million different things that you can do to get your heart rate up. And then you just want to rest in between, get your heart rate back down. And then as soon as it's going back down, you want to get it back up again. The idea is essentially that you're almost tricking your body to make it work a little bit harder. Once your body gets out of its comfort zone, it's going to work hard to get back down to where it wants to be, to where it's more comfortable. So that's what you're doing during your rest cycles for high intensity interval training. Then as soon as your heart rate is back down to that comfort zone, you want to spike it back up again. It's going to confuse your body again, and it's going to have to do more work. The idea with high intensity interval training is that with short spurts of vigorous exercise, your body is going to take its energy from fat. It has to do with the Krebs cycle. If you have taken any biology classes, I was a biology major, but in the Krebs cycle, when you're doing shorter spurts of intense exercise, your body is taking that energy from fat. Once you're doing kind of longer steady state cardio is what we would call it, so something that's a little bit more sustained, your body is using other things to get its energy, so carbohydrates, proteins, muscles, what have you. A good image or visual depiction of this is if you think about some of the organized sports that we watch on television that practice some of these different types of cardio exercises. So if you look at a gymnast, for example, if you look at somebody like a Simone Biles, a floor exercise is about 2 minutes long. So that's not a whole long time of high intensity exercise. She does that for like 2 minutes, and then she's going to go and rest. If you look at Simone's body type, she's rather muscular. She does not have a whole bunch of body fat. She does not have a high body fat content. She's got a lot of muscle. And you see that with a lot of gymnasts. That's not a coincidence, because they're doing more anaerobic exercise, which is shorter spurts of energy, and then you're resting. Whereas if you look at somebody like a marathoner, if you're watching the Boston Marathon or whichever marathon you watch, I'm in New England, so we watch the Boston Marathon. But whichever marathon you're watching, if you look at a lot of the people who are really successful at marathons, that's something that's a steady state cardiovascular activity. They're a little bit more lean. They don't have necessarily the muscle content of a Simone Biles or an Allyson Felix, who is a sprinter. They're a little bit leaner, still not a lot of body fat, but lower muscle content. That's more a visual depiction of what steady state cardio is doing for your body. So that is cardiovascular exercise. Next, we can go into strength or resistance training. Again, the recommendations from the American Heart Association is that you're using at least 2 days a week to do some strength or resistance training. When you're doing, and I'll talk about some examples of that after going over some of the recommendations, but we do want your heart rate between 50 to 80% of your maximum heart rate while you're doing these exercises. It's not quite as high as when you're doing cardiovascular exercises, but you do want to be raising your heart rate while you're doing some of these movements. So there's a couple of different ways you can do some strength exercises. You can use external resistance, which is what most people think of when we talk about strength training. That's using dumbbells, for example, the ones you hold in your hands to do like bicep curls, or to do goblet squats where you're holding a dumbbell by your chest and doing some squats. You can use kettlebells, which have a handle on the top, and then there's like a little ball on the bottom. Well, it's not little, it's dense. Those are pretty heavy. And you can use those to do some kettlebell snatches or some sumo squats, for example. A barbell is that's kind of what it sounds like. It's a long bar that you see people using when they're doing squats, like on their backs. You can use some back squats, or you can do some back squats with a barbell. You can do some deadlifts with a barbell, those types of things. With any type of strength training, but particularly when you're using external resistance, your form and your technique are key, because you don't want to be causing any injuries. So we had talked about, like, well, where do we start? What should we do? How do we start? A good thing to do is at your local gym. Lots of neighborhood gyms will offer complimentary personal training sessions. The gym that I work at certainly does, and a lot of other gyms will offer maybe 1 or 2 sessions. It's a great idea to get in front of a trainer to get your form evaluated, so that you know that you're moving in the right direction, you're using the right muscles, you're not making any mistakes. And it's really important also to practice in front of the mirror. Lots of gyms have either studios that have mirrors in them, or when you're at home, because you don't need to go to the gym to do resistance training, to practice in front of your mirror and think about the tips and tricks that you've received from trainers or fitness specialists. With a squat, you want to make sure your hips are going back and down like you're sitting in a chair. So that's something that's a good kind of cue to use when you're watching your form. Does it look like I'm sitting? Those are the types of things you want to be practicing when you're in front of the mirror. Now, that said, a lot of people will say, well, I can't do resistance training. I don't have dumbbells. I don't have kettlebells. I don't have barbells. Well, surprise, you don't actually need those to do resistance training. You can do some body weight exercises, or you can use things that you have around your house to create some resistance. Body weight exercises can include push-ups, can include pull-ups. If you don't have a pull-up bar, if you have a tree in your backyard and you have a branch, you can do pull-ups on a tree. You can do squats, you can do wall sits, you can do glute bridges, you can do many, many things without having external resistance. You can also, if you don't have dumbbells, you can use, or if you don't have any types of weights, you can use things around your house. Do you happen to have a 20-pound dog, for example, who you can lift and lower to do some exercises? Do you have a 24 case of water bottles? Those are pretty heavy. Can you hold those and do some squats? There are things you can use around your house, even small things. Again, we want to start at the beginning and move our way up. Do you have cans of beans, canned goods that you can do bicep curls with? Do you have a blanket that you can stand on and hold with your hands and then pull up to create some resistance and do bicep curls that way? There's lots of different things you can do, and lots of different household items, including, but not limited to, blankets, towels, mops, brooms, broomsticks, things you can use around your house that can assist with exercise, and that can exist with strength training, rather. The benefits of strength training include weight loss. Again, the same way cardiovascular exercise can lead to weight loss, so can strength training. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people new to exercise miss, is that the resistance training really is key if you're looking to engage in a fat loss program, because when you increase your muscles, your basal metabolic rate is going to increase. So that's basically a way that we, BMR is what it's called colloquially, and it's a way that we measure your metabolism. So the more muscle mass you have, and the lower your body fat percentage is, the higher your metabolism is going to be. So that just means you're going to be burning more calories at rest. So it's really important that if you want to engage in a fat loss program, that you're incorporating some of the strength training exercise. Another benefit to strength training, less to do with heart health, but we were talking about menopause and talking about aging and things like that. And what is helpful with both strength training and cardiovascular exercise is that they can help with your bone density. So once you're creating fewer of those hormones, there is more of a risk for brittle bones. So that when you are doing strength training, or if you're doing anything that is impact cardio, so anything where you're kind of jumping, that is going to help to increase or at least maintain your bone density, which is very important. I was asked to talk about a couple of special scenarios, including pregnancy. So some of the things that you should consider if you are pregnant and you're wanting to engage in an exercise program is that for the most part, barring kind of comfort and comfort level, for the most part, you can engage in a lot of the same exercises pre-pregnancy that you can while you're pregnant. So if you're somebody who exercises a lot and you do squats and you do bicep curls, once you're pregnant, barring your comfort level, you can mostly do a lot of the same stuff you were doing. You may notice like a decrease in an increase in mobility because of elastin, but you want to be very careful about pushing beyond what your kind of normal means are in terms of mobility and flexibility. You may notice an increase or decrease in strength. You want to just really listen to your body. That's what's very important. There are some contraindications in terms of exercise when you're pregnant. So some of the things you do want to think about are not doing any exercises where you're going to be like off balance. So we talk about like tennis, if you're going side to side like that, anything where there's a greater risk of you falling, ice skating, cheerleading and gymnastics, you want to be really cautious about engaging in those types of exercises. You also don't want to do anything in a supine position. So supine just means your belly side is up. So like laying on your back. There are some studies say that that supine position can affect the blood flow and thus oxygen to the fetus. So you want to be conscious post the first trimester. Within the first trimester, studies have shown that's okay. Second and third trimester, you want to be conscious to not be laying on your back. So that might include bench presses, that might include glute bridges, ab exercises, those types of things. If you are pregnant and exercising, using a heart rate monitor to measure intensity is not, it's not going to necessarily be detrimental, but it's not the most effective way to measure intensity just because hormones and things are different and your heart rate is going to measure differently while you're pregnant than when you're not. So the talk test that I talked about before is a better way to measure the intensity of your exercises. And it's a good way to listen to your body because the talk test may look different while you're pregnant than before. You want to avoid any twisting of the body. That's actually just a good rule of thumb in general. Twisting is not super highly recommended. And then postpartum, you want to watch or you want to be conscious of if you still have diastasis. And your doctor in your appointments following pregnancy will keep up with you with that. But you want to avoid any like crunching motions. If you've got a diastasis, that's not going to help it close. And again, with the twisting, you want to avoid that. So if you're doing an exercise that postpartum, that you're on the floor on your back in a supine position, instead of getting up off of the floor using a crunching motion, you're going to want to turn your body to the side and move everything together and use your arms and legs to push yourself off of the floor. So you just want to be conscious of that. From what I've been told, a lot of people who are exercising postpartum can kind of feel it when they're doing exercises supine and they're going to stand up. It feels more right. It feels more correct to twist your entire body, but it is something that you want to be conscious of. And you also want to be both pre-partum and postpartum focused on strengthening your pelvic floor. So there's a lot of different exercises that you can do, including sumo squats, glute bridges, types of things that are gonna strengthen your pelvic floor. That's not directly related to heart health, but that is just a consideration during pregnancy. Was there a question? I'm sorry.
No, that was me saying thank you.
Oh, okay. Just one more thing, especially since COVID and a lot of us have been working from home a lot, and a lot of people have been going into the office fewer days. We find ourselves more sedentary, so we're sitting a little bit more to work. There are lots of exercises you can do while you're sitting. Again, we talked about if you have like a soup can or a can of any canned good, doing some bicep curls where you're sitting. If you have bands are a really good, there's TheraBands, there are a lot of the bands that I think a lot of you have probably seen that are kind of circular and you can pull them and push them and things like that. And you can use those while you're sitting. You also don't need any equipment. You can do some leg lifts. Just keep your legs straight, lift them up, lift them back down. That's going to engage your core a little bit if you're doing one leg at a time. It's also going to help your hip flexors to get stronger. You can do some marches while you're sitting down. Just lift the knees up and down and keep your knees bent at about a 90-degree angle. You can do some arm circles. Keep your arms nice and straight. You want to make sure your shoulders are down with most any exercise, unless you're doing shoulder shrugs, in which case the objective is to lift them up. You can do, again, overhead presses with soup cans or water bottles or anything to that effect. You can do some waist pinchers, which are good for your obliques, which are your ab muscles on the outside of your waist. A waist pincher, what you want to think about is pulling up very tall. I tell my clients to think about separating their ribs from their hips as much as they can. And then you're kind of arching to the side to compress those muscles to the side. You can do those while you're sitting, anything like that. We talked a lot about, throughout this presentation, about stress and mental health and those types of things. The more stressed that you are, the more cortisol that your body is going to produce. We talked about that. One or both of the presenters before me mentioned it. That is a hormone that can increase your cortisol. Cortisol really likes fat. So it can increase the fat content in your body the more stressed you are. So you really want to focus on lowering your stress level, and exercise can help you do that just by, first of all, just releasing kind of tension and releasing energy and clearing your mind. But you also want to focus on non-exercise related things. So I'm somebody who benefits a lot from bubble baths. I take a lot of bubble baths, the hot water, the bubbles. That's just like something that's soothing to me. That is super helpful. Listening to music, for a lot of people, that's a way to kind of drain or to let go of some of the stress throughout the day. That's something that's very important. That helps people while they're exercising too, as a distraction. But even if you're not engaging in a physical exercise, you want to make sure that you're keeping your mind healthy as well as your body. So the self-care is very important. If that looks like, watching your favorite movie, if that looks like calling your best friends to laugh and joke, if that looks like playing with your dog, who is still in my lap, if that's what that looks like, then do whatever it is that you need to do to release the stress. It's going to create a healthy mindset, which is just as important as having a healthy body. And that is the end of my piece. Were there any questions? I had not been checking.
You. There are some questions in the chat. Okay.
I asked a question. I'm sorry, I threw in information because I was just thinking metabolically as you were speaking. I was just throwing in some other things, so you can avoid that. But I was curious where you said it's a MyZone belt. Where would you get that, and roughly how expensive would that be?
That's a great question. So they are available online. Yes, MyZone, MyZone, one word. They are available online. They can be pretty pricey. The most recent edition of the MyZone is the 4th edition, I believe. And it can be about $150 per belt. That said, there are lots of kind of promo codes. You just got to like scour the internet. So there are lots of promo codes. Some gyms, so my gym, I work at a gym in Cambridge, Massachusetts. My gym will offer them at a discounted price if you engage in certain like activities at the gym. But online, there are different like promo codes that you can find. I use a MyZone belt, and I personally find it worth every dollar. It does a thing where it not only measures your heart rate, but it puts your heart rate percentages into different zones. So for example, if you're using 50 to 59% of your maximum heart rate, the screen on your phone or whatever device you're using to utilize the MyZone belt, the screen will turn like a dark gray. When you're using 60 to 69% of your maximum heart rate, the screen will turn blue. So if you're running and you can't really focus on what does that number say, you can just look at the color and say, okay, I know that I'm using 70 to 79% of my maximum heart rate because the screen is green. So it's really helpful in that way because it's a very clear visual representation. So you can find those online. You can find them at different gyms, local gyms in your area. I'm sure you could, I don't actually know this for a fact. I presume you could find it on like Amazon. I imagine.
Probably.
Probably. I have not looked. I have my own. So if it's not there, I apologize. But I just assume that you can find anything on Amazon. So that is my guess. But my zone does have its own website as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That was great. A lot of wonderful information, to help us keep our hearts healthy and to strengthen our hearts. And even when you're pregnant, even when you're running a marathon, you still have to do things to keep your heart healthy. So thank you, Nichell and Adi, with all that wonderful information. So this is like almost our last slide. So what can you do to prevent heart disease? Prevention is better than cure. So all that we heard about diet and exercise, that's how you can prevent it. Once it's there, it's harder. So we want to stop it before it happens. We want to try to be that middleman before we get cardiac disease or heart disease. You want to listen to your body and respond and talk to your doctor about everything that's happening. And sometimes we have to encourage, continue to talk to our doctor. Some of us, especially people of color, and research will show, sometimes we're not heard, we're not listened to. So you want to just continue to tell your doctor, but this is what I'm feeling and this is what I have, because you know your body, and you don't want to get it brushed off. So really you have to advocate for yourself. You're your best advocate for your body. So do that and stop it before it begins. Okay, so that's the end of our presentation. We did well with the time. I like that. Thank you so much for tuning in. And do we have some questions? Oops, sorry, now it's moving. I don't know what's going on now. So does anyone else out there have any questions for us? Any other questions?
If I may, I could ask some questions. I have questions for each one of you. So this question is relating to diet and nutrition. So speaking of gut health, lately for the past maybe 3 to 5 years, there's been a lot of people going into the pharmacy requesting or asking more questions about probiotics. Mm-hmm. Since you did mention yogurt earlier and things like that, and other foods for gut health, what information or what would you like to say regarding that? That's question number one regarding nutrition. Question number two regarding nutrition is about the many legumes, vegetables, and fruits that you mentioned earlier. In order for you to receive the nutrition from the food, how should it be cooked? I have heard different things in regards, it should be braised, lightly cooked, browned a little bit, but not like fully cooked or boiled fully, etc. What information do you have for our audience about that?
Sure. So the first thing with the microbiome, which is one of my favorite topics, you don't necessarily have to buy a probiotic supplement. Fiber itself is a probiotic. So you can, this is why we definitely encourage people to eat whole foods. I don't mean the grocery store. I don't want you to spend an arm and a leg, but whole foods, meaning fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, whole grains, focusing on complex carbohydrates, so it's not going to spike your blood sugar, and avoiding sugar sweetened or sugar substitutes rather. There's some evidence now in the literature about sucralose or Splenda, for example. Some of these non-nutritive sweeteners can actually suppress the growth of some of the good bacteria in your gut. I've been off Splenda since I think September, and I feel that even just doing that, there's some differences in the way I feel. It depends on the person too, because our microbiomes can differ a little bit. Some people, maybe they have more lactobacillus in their gut, and that could be good, helping them to digest certain fiber types than say bifidobacterium or something like that. But you definitely can benefit from probiotics without actually buying a supplement, just really getting as much fiber. Well, let me rephrase that, because you can get too much fiber, but you want to have somewhere between 25, maybe 30 grams a day. So beans, great source of different fiber types, but also be careful with that. Some people can be really sensitive to certain fiber types. You can eat seeds. Seeds are also a really excellent source of those fibers. And as I mentioned before, chia seeds, flax seeds are really, really great for your health in all these different ways, but you want to make sure that If you're going to use those, you open them so you can buy them ground so that your body can access what's inside of them. But again, maybe if you're struggling from constipation, leaving them whole so that they pass undigested through your system is another good thing you can do. And then, I'm sorry, what was your second question?
Second question was cooking without losing the nutritional value of the greens and the legumes and such.
Yeah, so when you cook different foods, of course, it's going to influence what the integrity of what's in there. There's some vitamins and minerals that can actually be lost in cooking processes. For example, green beans, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, kale, so those are better cooked steamed. So you could do this at home with a pot, for example. If you have a big pot, you can put in a sieve that's made out of metal, and you can put your veggies in there and just, have some water boiling just below it so it's not touching the vegetables, but just below so that the steam can hit those, and put a lid on top. But you don't want to steam for too long. You can lose, once the water starts turning green, you've actually lost some water-soluble vitamins, for example. You could prepare even the dried beans. I definitely recommend like a pressure cooker, for example. Some people will boil those a little bit longer because they're so, the fiber is just so hard. It's going to be a lot on your system to try to eat it when it's not cooked well enough. So doing a pressure cooker is a great way to get those soft enough to kind of release some of those nutrients that your body needs. I definitely recommend, I'm a huge advocate of canned beans. I eat those regularly. You can get those in so many different varieties, and they're already pre-prepared. So, it's easy to get what your body wants to get out of those. But yeah, I definitely recommend steaming different vegetables, especially the cruciferous ones, but maybe somewhere between 4 and 6 minutes, depending on how much you're putting into that sieve. And keep an eye on the water. Again, if it changes color, you're losing the vitamins there. But the good thing about that, you can still benefit from that even. You could use that as a base for a broth if you want to make a vegetable broth, for example, and drink that. I call that real vitamin water. Sometimes if I steam for too long, I'll actually drink that water itself.
Thank you. Thanks, Adie. Dan has a question. So we'll move on to Dan.
I know we're drawing really short on time. I just want to thank you. I talked to Adine before this. I was excited to be here. I had a heart attack in 2012, ironically coming home from Planet Fitness, and was able to be in the ED in just a couple of minutes, which saved my life. And everything that's been presented here today to me is so motivational. It's about doing the right thing. It's about, you don't have to starve yourself. You can just find new food choices. And thank you so much for that exciting presentation. And just thanks, folks. I was looking forward to it. And you certainly well met and went beyond my expectations. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We enjoyed the presentation. Hopefully next year we can do it, or later on in the year we can do something else. But thanks for having us talk to you today. I think there's another question. Seeing that. No, those are thank yous. Thank you. I'm just trying to get to the next slides about our upcoming presentations. There we go. Scott, do you want to talk about these, making smart money decisions?
Sure. So the NAACP Manchester branch does different workshops. This workshop today was by the Health Committee. We also have another committee, which is the Economic Justice Committee, and they have a workshop this month on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And they have the following workshop will be March 14th. So if you enjoyed this workshop, you will also enjoy the Economic Justice workshop. They had a previous workshop relating to tax, and that workshop was packed with so much information. And one of the goals of the NAACP is to empower communities of color to be more independent and to be more included in conversations relating to healthcare and relating to building wealth. And so this next workshop would be talking about credit and credit reports. And the following workshop we'll talk about, don't quite remember what was it about. Okay. So it's going to be about managing credit cards and debts on March 14th. And on Valentine's Day, it's going to be about credit reports and scores. So if you want to learn how to manage that, increase your credit score, things like that, this will be a great workshop to attend. And managing debts, we all have a lot of debts, school loans, house loans, credit card debts, and etc. And we can just get some more information relating to that.
Okay.
With that said, if there's no more questions, I'd like to say that the NAACP is looking for more participants, more contributors, and there are a lot of committees that would benefit from having people join these committees. Or if you don't want to join a committee, you can even just be a member to support the NAACP. Like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, like all the social media platforms, we are there. And if you like us so much, you can also join, contribute, donate, and share some of our information with others in your household, at work, and anywhere in your life. With that said, I believe this is the end of the workshop, if there's nothing else to say.
One other little announcement is just in case anybody wasn't aware. So the NAACP's national convention is actually in Boston this year, from July 26th to August 1st. So anybody who might want to participate in that, I put the website, naacp.org, there in the chat. But yeah, continue, Scott. Thank you for attending.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming. We hope to see you at the next workshop. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and stay warm. Stay warm.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.